Same.
All right.
Let's check. Let's check. You still got 1 minute. Todd, line. I get started here with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll get started here with roll call. Mark? Here. Gwen? Todd? Kenny? Here. Crystal?
Here.
Dale? Here. Teresa?
Yes, here. I'm on Zoom.
Perfect. All right, I think that means we have a quorum. Looks like we've got 5 of us here. And Nathan is on Zoom as well.
Present via Zoom.
Great. I suppose for the record, Amber, are you here?
Yes.
John?
Here.
Great. All right, we have a quorum. Did you folks have a chance to look at the agenda or the minutes from the last meeting? Yeah. Thought that looked pretty good. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Got a motion from Mark. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Kenny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so we have a public hearing on the planning and building department administration structure and staffing amendments. And John tells me that what we did last time was the draft, and this time we're approving it. So, any discussion with the board before we open it up to a public hearing?
No, do you need a motion to open?
I think we will.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're going to open this up for a public hearing on the administration structure and staffing amendments. Anything from the public? Chris, nothing from you tonight?
Sure. I'm just waiting.
Very first one.
Okay, and I think Nathan suggested last time to put it out to the public 3 times, so that was once. Anybody from the public? Twice? 3 times? Oh,
Give us a quick summary, if you would, of what the changes are.
I can let John, he's really kind of put this together and done a really a really good job with it. So I'll let John kind of tell you how we've restructured things. We did kind of go over it in the last meeting a little bit,
Yeah.
but he can kind of break it down real quick.
Too easy, sir. So on the screens, you'll see resolution 2026-PC-03. This is an amendment to ordinance 2006-25. This is your typical planning commission blessing off page. Scroll down. Keep going. All right, and this is the actual ordinance. As you'll see, section 1, it changes wherever the term Stark County Planning and Zoning Administrator appears, it'll be replaced with Stark County Director of Planning and Building. I added a blurb in there that it doesn't change or alter or modify the appointment of the executive director by Indiana code. Section 2 has to do with the building code. Because the planning administrator was tied to the building commissioner, there's some shared language between the two. So I added section 2 to make sure that it was clear that nothing changes as far as the plan commission's ability to oversee 2006 25. Section 3, this is more along the lines of the same blanket, ensure everything else remains. This changes the name, the title of the position, but it doesn't remove or change any of the authority that was given to the Plan Commission by 2006 25. Severability, if this is ever challenged, any provision not challenged still remains in effect, and the effective date will be when the commissioners sign it. And that handles the first one.
Are we gonna need to sign that?
Yes, after you vote, you sign.
You wanna send it down this way so I've got
It's
it?
just you sign. I don't know if you want me to go to the next one or you
Go
want to
ahead.
pause.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the next one is 2010 15. This one is the same cover letter. It's a different ordinance. This one has to do with amending the Stark County Building Code. Again, section 1 has to do with changing the planning and zoning administrator or the planning and zoning administrator / building commissioner with Stark County Director of Planning and Building or Stark County Director of Planning and Building / building commissioner respectively throughout the ordinance. Section 2 is the preservation of the Plan Commission authority. Our building code is unique in that it assigns authority of the building commissioner to the Plan Commission. So I want to make sure that it wasn't overwritten by this ordinance, by this amendment. So I clearly laid out the authority that was given to the Plan Commission in the original ordinance and make sure that it reflected that nothing changed in the amendment. Section 3 is essentially it gives authorization to building commissioner to also act as the planning and zone or the director of planning and zoning. They are officially 2 positions and the building code recognizes the separation of positions. This gives the ability for that one individual to hold both positions. Section 4, same thing. If anything in this ordinance is ruled invalid, the rest of the ordinance remains and effective date will be the date that the commissioner signed. Next one is 2018 03 05. This is the ordinance amending the code enforcement officer. Because the code enforcement officer is no longer labeled code enforcement officer, it's labeled as secretary. Section 1 does the same thing. Wherever the code enforcement ordinance references code enforcement officer, it will be replaced with the Secretary of Planning and Building Department. Hereby referred to as secretary because that's a mouthful. Section 2 just clarifies that all the duties that were assigned to the code enforcement officer remain under the same title. And that nothing in 2018-0305 is repealed or diminished by the enactment of this amendment. Section 3 outlines supervision and control. It gives the secretary a boss, if you will. It was kind of unclear in the ordinances who the code enforcement officer reported to. The code enforcement officer was designed to report to the planning administrator or executive director. So this specifically assigns the secretary underneath the director. The code enforcement officer will handle initial investigations, picture taking and paperwork. But I say she because it is a she currently, she does not have the authority to issue fines, stop work orders, unsafe building law, etc. Section 4, in the original ordinance, the code enforcement officer was given, well, the plan commission was given the authority to hire the code enforcement officer. So I put this in as to continue that. The plan commission still has the authority to hire and fire the code enforcement officer. And then section 5, effective date, same thing. The ordinance take effect upon signing with the plan commission or with the commissioners. Amendment number 1. Amendment to rules of procedure.
John, I don't personally need you to go through it all. I'm just
Okay.
letting you kind of the three positions and you describe. So we got one position left briefly. How does that one fit in?
So that one was, I'll briefly discuss it, but that was already approved when the job descriptions went through. Amber is the deputy administrative assistant. The way it works is our ordinance was. The job description was changed and these ordinance were changed. It's listed in here because it's a rules of procedure thing for the plan commission. Essentially, Amber was giving administrative officer authority. So she has the same authority as I do as far as the plan commission and zoning. And so she can issue ILPs, she can issue fines, she can issue stop work orders for zoning related issues. Obviously, I maintain overall control. If I disagree with the position, it's listed in here that I do have that override authority if necessary.
Thanks, that's very helpful.
No worries, sir. This one is important for the board. So section 1 obviously updates the roles, the names. Section 2. So Section 2, there is no change. It's basically saying the planning and building department is the new name. Section 3, you guys requested that the hiring authority be removed from the director of planning and building and given to the plan commission. I have done that. I would just like to caution that in doing so, you remove my teeth and my ability to manage the department. I no longer have the ability to discipline if necessary, or hire or fire. If there is an issue interdepartmentally, it ultimately is up to the board to issue corrective action or disciplinary action. I lose that ability. So I just want to make it fully clear that in doing this, you're removing my teeth to enforce good order and discipline. However, I did write it, and we will go forward if that's what you guys wish. And then section 4, the structure goes me, Amber, Robbie. Obviously, this is just for a supervisory explanation. Obviously, I can't hire, fire, or discipline anymore. Section 5 is where Amber is given the administrative official authority. She will be able to do anything that I can do as far as zoning, and I remain the right to override if necessary. Section 6, I added in there that job descriptions will be written by myself. However, they will not go to the commissioners unless they're blasted off by the plan commission. No job description shall be presented to the Board of Commissioners or used for employment purposes unless it has first been approved by the Plan Commission. Section 7 adds an appendix to the rules of procedure, which more in detail outline the staffing structure for the office. And then Section 8 is the effective date. One request that you guys had that currently I was unable to fill was the annual reappointment of the department. After speaking with Viz, he agrees that if you want to do annual appointments by the board, we would become contractual employees. So an ordinance would have to be written to from the commissioners, giving the plan commission authority to enter contracts, which is easy enough, but in doing so, you remove quite a few benefits that employees of the county receive because now we're contracted employees. I couldn't fit it into this one. It would require a whole new amendment or a whole new ordinance. I'm willing to do so. I just need to get clarification if you guys want to move forward with that.
Does that cover all of them?
That's all of it, sir.
So just to kind of answer your question, we tried to create a top-down organizational chart here. Basically the responsibility, or obligation of the job is falling on John, and then it moves to Amber and then Robbie. So we've created like a tier system, so to speak, which is slightly different than what, as far as I know, the plan commission's ever had.
This ordinance does not need to go to Commissioners Amendment number 1 or Appendix A. It's rules of procedure, so a vote by you guys would confirm and then you would sign, sir.
Okay. Anything else from the public? Sir?
Are there any other departments where the department head doesn't have the authority that John would have if it goes the way you have it written?
I can't say one way or the other. I don't know by department
Right.
who has what authority.
Most other departments are elected officials.
And it's not to say that it couldn't be altered down the road if it does become a conflict. This is just the first draft of this. Well, it's not the first draft. This is going to be the final version, but this is the first version of this that the county's really had in this much detail. So I think John did a really good job of putting this together.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, when you think about it, treasurer, elected, auditor, elected. This position is not elected. This is more of an appointed position.
Sheriff, same thing.
Anything else from the public? Donnie, anything? Need a motion to close public comment?
I second it.
Why?
Wait,
Not
you
making
make-
a motion.
you didn't make- I'll make a motion to close it.
We got a motion from Kenny,
I'll second it.
second from Mark. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. Okay, so Nathan, well, I guess first, before we go to this, Terry, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, not at all. Thank you, John. A lot of work put into those. documents.
Is there any concern that you have, or are you good with moving forward for now?
Nope, no concerns.
Great.
Thank you.
Nathan, do we need to read these resolutions individually and get a motion on each?
What you do have to approve them individually, but one of the things you can do, Mike, is to waive the complete reading of it as they've been available for the public to come in and review. And you would just make a motion to approve the ordinance and just read the title of it.
But we should do that individually, correct?
Correct. They should each be each one separately.
Okay,
And you should reflect for the record, however, Amber, when you make the minutes, that the public comment was made open and available on all ordinances proposed.
okay, so we have resolution 2026-PC-03, a resolution of the Stark County Plan Commission concerning a proposal to amend text of the Stark County zoning ordinance. Do we have a motion to approve that?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, we got a motion from Kenny. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Dale. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2026-PC-05, a resolution of the Stark County Plan Commission concerning the proposal to amend text of the Stark County zoning ordinance. We have a motion.
We'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Dale. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Crystal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2026-PC-04, a resolution of the Stark County Plan Commission concerning the proposal to amend text of the Stark County zoning ordinance. We have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Crystal. Do we have a second?
Aye.
Second from Kenny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Bless you.
Amendment number 1 to the Stark County Planning Commission Rules of Procedures.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment number 1, rules of procedure.
Motion from Mark. We have a second.
I'll second.
second from Dale. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? John, is that all of them?
That is, sir, appendix A went into effect the minute you signed them.
So is that it for what you needed for the,
The public report, yes, sir.
perfect. All right, so next on the list is the discussion of the draft commercial solar energy system ordinance. Now, the last time we kind of went item by item, we do not have a full board here, but I would like to get this started. Do you guys want to go item by item tonight, or perhaps you guys have all done your own work and want to tag through this in some way? And kind of leaving this up to the board on how you'd like to proceed.
I'm looking for the item by item right now. I know it's that, that's why I'm looking on the fan.
41 pages.
I know, that's why I'm on the device here before I know it'll be a long night, but we almost have to go item by item and zip.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think I'd reference to John. I've got a conflict here, so I got to head out at about 15. But I think maybe before we dive back into line by line with the rough draft that was provided, which is really a dartboard to build around, I think perhaps it sounds like the Planning Commission office has been receiving some feedback as well. And maybe just a general conversation, kind of a philosophic conversation to say, what are the big key items that we as a county want to discuss and be aware of, right? So I think those big ticket items are the side yard setbacks. If it's going to be adjacent to residential, what do we want to see in terms of how far away before you can start building if it's in a field adjacent? Are we expecting mounds in between with, are they 3 to 4 feet tall? Do we want that? What do we want the density of shrubbery or trees to be like? Those to me seem kind of the broad issues that we should be discussing, perhaps before we dive back more into some of the details. Just the thought, there's no right way to do it. It just seems to me that some of those items are the greater sticking points. So we should be talking about those.
I think that's a great point. Thoughts from the board? Terry, we could potentially go through this, maybe just list off a section and see if anybody in the board wants to recap that, which would be a much broader overlook. I'm sure these guys up here have some notes, and like Nathan said, we have some we have some heavy hitter items here from the public and so forth that people are concerned about. Any thoughts, Terry?
No, I agree. Get to the more, like Nathan said, the more discussed, controversial things.
Okay. Kenny, thoughts? You want to just kind of start at the beginning and hit the main topics here, or?
Yeah, hit whatever the most important one is that the public is concerned about. And then work your way, well, they're all important, but down to the least the feedback, maybe.
What's the office hearing from the public?
Definitely setback concerns. I
Yeah.
mean, that's probably the primary one that we hear the most of,
Right.
is the feasibility with the setbacks. Almost eliminates anything happening on a parcel.
So setbacks is probably your biggest concern.
Yes.
Second and third would be a cap on the percentage of land countywide, as well as a cap township.
Township one.
We're
I
double
remember that
cap.
discussion. Was it what, 10%? Is that what the cap was, or?
Right now, it's, what is it, Viz, like 3%?
3%.
Yeah, I think that was the suggested, correct.
Do we have a current cap right now?
No, there's no cap in the current ordinance, sir.
Okay. And that's county and township, or is that just township 3%?
No, there's two caps in place. From the research I've done, most counties do one or the other. They don't do both.
Do we have any baseline for any other county that,
I've looked through every county around us. I kind of stay away from southern Indiana because they're a little too far and it's a
and where
different
do you
animal.
see that?
Most are between the 8 to 12%. Or they cap the size of the project itself. But there's only one county that I have found that caps the actual project size.
So ours is much more restrictive than,
Much more. Yes, sir.
than other counties.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You were just discussing that. Are you ready for any comment on those?
Well, I'll open it up to public comment in a few minutes. I want to give the board an opportunity here.
Thank you for that research, John.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
So, and you guys jump in here. I'm gonna go to page number 6 of this thing, which a lot of the beginning.
I'm cheating off of yours. I'm cheating off of yours, so I'm looking, I'm reading.
So a lot of the first pages is bullet point type stuff. One of the things that I thought was kind of important that got put in here was the manufacturer model information of the solar panels, inverters, switch gears, mounting systems. I thought that was important language to have. The fire prevention and emergency response, I know the board has had a lot of discussion on that, and they want to keep pushing for as much of that as we can get for these projects.
Actually, that was brought up last night in the State of the Union about fire departments. It's kind of interesting.
I actually talked to a fire chief and they were advised to not enter in case there was a fire.
Yeah.
Does that sound
But
correct?
that's what they told me. Yeah, they do have the foam that they can use. That's the only real prevention. But when I went to, I'm probably the only one on the board that, I don't know if anybody else did, but I went to an actual location for a battery facility, and they said they are self-contained. And if they catch on fire, they just let them burn, which really kind of concerned me, but I don't know what you really have for suppression. So without the proper stuff, I may be in a bad situation. Cause that lithium ion battery runs so stinking hot. I'm sure you know that. So that's a concern. Anyway, but
One of the things I had noted here, and board, feel free to jump in as we're cruising through some of this. On page 7, all costs associated with a third-party engineering shall be paid by the applicant. That's something I just want to clarify as a thought, I guess. I want to make sure that the county is hiring the third party. And the reason I don't really want the solar company paying for it is because I think that could show some bias. I'd like the solar company to reimburse the county
Yeah,
for whatever those costs are.
that definitely should be the case, and that's the intention there, is that any and all outside costs that the county incurs are reimbursed. And that should be
Like
candidly,
530.
that should be across the board, Mike.
Yes, I'm on section 5.3 here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something that we can get a little bit more detailed in there perhaps. As to how that's spelled out.
Mhm. Yeah, we can do that. The intention there is, and it candidly should be in the solar and any other building ordinance, if the county has to hire an outside party, is that very typically the costs associated with that outside review, whether it's an engineer, whether it's legal, etc., that cost is then turned back to the applicant to reimburse. That way it eases the burden of the cost that it takes to operate local government.
Any thoughts from the board on that comment?
I like that idea.
A good point.
And I know this has kind of come up here recently. permit duration and expiration. I think there's some gray area there that could potentially cause problems moving forward, for the county. And I definitely want to see that spelled out in our ordinance. And we have a section listed here, 5.5. And that seems to detail it pretty well. I don't know if we need to dive in more on that.
Isn't it currently 12 months? From the date of issuance?
It is, ma'am. From what it looks like, the only wording change, limits the amount of extensions and the time frame that that extension goes for. This ordinance is a little bit more specific because it uses the word construction, which is not open to interpretation. If there is no panels and there is no racking and there is no excavating, then there is no work.
So you want to change it from 12 months to 24 months to get the construction commenced?
No, so this has about the same as our current zoning ordinance. The only difference is, well, there really is no difference. It's still a performance-based permit. And if there is no performance, if there's no improvement on the location, then the permit will die. This just, it's no different than now. An extension would need to be granted. I would say that this does not say who grants that extension, which could be a sticking point, whether it comes from the Plan Commission Board or it comes from myself.
I think it might be worth, maybe you and Nathan collaborating to dive into some of that language on there a little bit more. Just so there's no gray area for your position down the road.
Yes, sir.
Would the board agree with that?
The following paragraph 5.6. So if 5.5 limits it to one extension and then 5.6 renewed and extended, it's the same thing, the same size as a different client. So in 5.6, it's allowing it twice, but 5.5 is only allowing it once.
And 5.7 has become a little bit of a sticking point.
Yes, 5.6, 5.7's become a sticking point because of something else that I think is missing in here, and that's the sale or transfer of ownership of construction sites prior to the completion of the project. This wouldn't have been 5.7 wouldn't have been an issue if the other issue wasn't sold halfway through the project. Because then one person's no longer responsible, they don't have the plans, the other person says, well, we never had the plans, we didn't start construction. So 5.7's fine, but I do think we need to add in a blurb about the sale or transfer of a construction site prior to the completion of the project.
I have a question. So this permit, okay? Let's say this guy right here, his company got the permit. Now, he's going under. So does the next party just get his permit or they have to apply for their own?
No, they can accept or take over ownership of the permit, but we as the plan commission need to know about it.
Right,
It
and then
can't
you
be
get a
3 years
third
later.
party.
Oh yeah, we sold it.
Yeah, but I mean, just say, it's kind of like having a liquor license, I got the license, the permit and the license and it costs minimal money, but if you want that particular license, they're hard to get, so.
Right.
I'll sell it to you and then the next guy buys it from that guy. How many times can it,
Keep rolling.
keep rolling? That's what I mean, is there a limit on, hey, come
The
on?
limit would be 24 months.
No, I mean, on
If you want to
different
transfer,
companies.
if you want to transfer companies 8 times within 24 months, that's fine, but your clock doesn't restart, the permit doesn't restart. It's still a hard 12-month period. But you should not be able to sell or transfer a construction site without at least the plan commission knowing about it. If not approving the transfer or sale, so we can make sure that we have what we need prior to that happening. So there is no gap, like the gap that was created last year.
Right.
So I think that still takes us back for this whole section here is maybe some more detail. And kind of spell that out a little bit more as to what that expectation could look like.
Yes, sir. The most important part is how much do you want the board to control and how much do you want me to control?
Well, I think for transparency, it's better for it to get brought up in a public meeting, which if you give the board the control, that forces it to come to a public meeting.
It does, but it puts. Oftentimes, things like this, there's timeline constraints. And so if I'm waiting for a meeting or a quorum to happen in a meeting, it could either A, work in our favor or against our favor because we weren't fast enough. So there are some things to think about when you're gonna give decision-making authority to the board, that you guys don't work every day and you don't have meetings every day. And so,
Could there be language in here that states that if there are disputes over these things, that it can happen at the next available public meeting?
well, any disputes that arise would be the same. It would have to go to the BZA. Unless
I'm
you,
more referring to just this section, so I'm trying to give you some sort of a language barrier, so it can still get brought up in a public meeting at the plan commission. I'm trying to think of how we could word that to give you the cushion. And maybe, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, maybe.
no, it's just, there's no real easy way to do it. Either I have the authority to say yes or no, or I don't have the authority to say yes or no. Once I've exercised that authority, the plan commission, I'm not discrediting you guys, but you have no power over that decision. It has to go to the BZA. So the only way to give that power to you is give you administrative authority.
Right.
But you can't be the appeal body to a decision.
I think he should have the authority. Cause he's here every day, like he said, so he's gonna need to move the project forward. They're not gonna wanna wait for a meeting.
And I get that. I'm just
Yeah.
concerned that the public's not gonna feel that things happen.
But he's right, they could always go in front of the BZA if they wanna hear him, so that gives them another option,
So they still have the option for the public hearing. Once
So-
they appeal.
honestly, to appeal.
Yeah.
I know you gotta give them some teeth.
I can keep you updated, obviously,
That's what I'm-
how things are going in
Mhm.
public meetings during old business or, staff reports. But yeah, either I have it or you have it.
Yeah. I'm just concerned about the public, saying they're not, things were done behind closed doors. That's my only concern. I'm just trying to find a way to make sure that if something like this comes up, you make a decision. I think the board would be good with your decision. But I don't want the public to feel that there was decisions made.
I think, to be honest, it's inherent in the position. I am the executive branch of the plan commission, for lack of a better word. So the implied task is that I execute zoning and building ordinance. If there is a question, they can fill out a request and we'll provide emails or BZA board packets, but I think trust needs to be built, and it can't be built if you don't give the opportunity to build it in the first place.
I think the safeguard here, guys and gals, is that you just need really good clarity in this particular section of the ordinance as to what is the expectation for work to be performed. And if you have clear parameters, then you really don't run into the questions a year from now, whether or not permits and other things can be renewed.
Yeah. So it takes us back to filling in some more detail into this.
Yep.
Something that defines, construction, defines, putting a shovel in the ground or
Well, construction
shuffling
is,
people down.
the ordinance says work. Work is open, but this does say construction. Construction is a very specific, there needs to be shovels in ground, there needs to be excavation, racks, panels, transformers, like construction is a very good word to use because there's no ambiguity. It's very clear.
Okay,
Which, hey, Mike,
Yes,
while we're on this topic, just so that the board is aware, I did send a note to John this afternoon. Per your instruction, I had sent certified communication in NIPSCO apprising them of the deficiencies of the project. I did receive a response from their legal counsel this afternoon wanting to talk. So I will continue those negotiations, but just so that you as the plan commission are aware on that one, that was something you'd requested of John and I.
thank you.
Yep.
So if nobody has anything, I'm gonna jump to 6.2, which is on page 9 of my, which kind of leads into setbacks of participating and non-participating. Now, one of the things that I've talked to some of the solar folks about is the idea of what is considered a participating and non-participating landowner. Now, in my opinion, a neighbor to a project, say these folks have lived there 50 years, they've been surrounded by farm fields, they're frustrated this is going in. They wish it would have been a further setback from their property. You could become a participating landowner without sacrificing any land, potentially, by doing like a property line easement or something, where there could be some sort of exchange of funds to become a participating landowner, which could decrease the setback from your property if that property owner was willing. I've kind of had a good conversation with a couple of the developers about that concept. And I think it gives the non-participating landowner a little bit of, as this term has been used a lot tonight, teeth in these projects, to make them feel like they're part of it, and it would decrease the setback, and maybe there could be some funds, dispersed in their direction, and they become a participating landowner if they choose so. However, if that same landowner decided to remain a non-participating landowner, that could potentially, the way this is worded, have some further setbacks from a non-participating landowner property line. So that's just a concept I've put out there. I don't know if I tracked that very well in conversation. But it's a thought that I've had that could be a workaround for both parties to get what they want out of the deal.
even at that, there should still be, you still have to have some type of standard distance. So they're not 25 feet away from you. You cut some kind of deal, yeah, that's great, but, and then you find out that, oh, they're putting it that a lot closer than I thought. I have no breathing room.
Yeah, we have to, in my opinion, you have to protect the non-participating landowners that don't have a say in it. And the further away from their property, the happier they're going to be.
Right, and in the scenario that I presented, what I'm
That was a good-
suggesting,
Yeah, that I like that. Let them have the choice.
right,
But at least have a certain starting point
right,
at, you gotta have you gotta set up, I would think you'd have to set like,
150 feet.
50 feet to, let's use a number. Let's round it up, 200 feet. Okay, and then, it's gotta be at least that, and then they still need to work with the landowner. You know,
Well, I'm in favor of the setbacks that you have on this draft.
I think that's what it is.
What is the current setbacks, do you know?
I do not know offhand. I based all of my research off of the current ordinance, not what we had before, because it'll never go back to what it was before, so I never bothered.
I just wondered.
I will say we are almost double every other.
Every county?
Yes. We are,
And do they have the one side, two side, three side?
no,
No.
no, but the setbacks range from 100 to 500 is the extreme. And so we are vastly over that. It is worth mentioning that the same appeasement can be done with increased screening. It doesn't necessarily need to be setbacks. You know what I mean? If you increase the amount of trees to the point they're almost planting a forest between the landowners and the farm, it at least gives the landowners who are doing the solar half of their property back to do the farm.
I got the numbers here, panel rates shall be set back a minimum of 50 feet from an adjoining property line and a minimum of 100 feet from the center of the public road. These setbacks should not apply between adjoining participating parcels. Additionally, there must be set back a minimum of 200 feet from the foundation of a primary dwelling unit. So that's how the current ordinance states.
Only 50 feet from the property line.
Right.
And this is one of the issues that you guys are having, because this is a lot more of a setback.
I think John's point is a good one. There's a lot that can be done. I think other municipalities and counties are finding with requiring various size berms along the edges of these projects, requiring layered vegetation, off-centered, etc., to provide screening. So that's definitely, I think, something that should be evaluated here.
I know one problem is it's an inherent problem is the buzzing and the humming. It carries really far. I deal with it all the time where I'm at.
No, from
Yeah, from the
power line, because you're running.
No, not the power lines, from the transformers at
Yeah.
the substation
That's it.
itself, buzzing and
Yeah.
humming. And you're familiar, with the contacts, when the big contactors kick in,
Oh, yeah.
motor
Thump,
starters,
thump.
when the, when the pads start getting a little worn, they start to chatter. And that adds to it too.
So you hear some of this noise?
Oh, yeah, every day,
Yeah.
it's just every day. And sometimes you can hear it in the house, and so I have compassion for the neighbors. I mean, but those are inherent problems with this stuff, you can put up trees, you can hide it, but you're not gonna, it's hard to hide that. If the batteries, I don't know if they buzz or what they do, but I do know the power station, the substations there, yeah, they're very active. 24/7.
That could be easily changed without the setbacks as well. You can mandate transformers are 1,000 feet from, you know what I mean? The solar, they can design their farm however they want. So you can mandate any, sound generating equipment has 1,000 feet setbacks.
Yeah.
Trees are natural
Damping.
sound dampening, same thing with berms. There are other ways I just want to make clear, there are other ways to accomplish this these are extremely excessive compared to everybody else around us.
The board doesn't mind, I'm gonna ask Chris a question here. How much say in design do you folks get with where your substations are? Yeah.
We have to work with the utility.
Right.
And they identify and where you can weigh into that, I mean, they identify the locations in the property that we have about where the substations can go and the transfer. So we have some leeway, but it has to align with what the utility is going to permit and what the grid operator is going to permit.
Yeah, I don't, Nathan, are you still on?
I'm still here. Yep.
Roughly what time are you leaving, just so the board?
I I'm pushing here. I gotta be gone by 6:30, so.
Okay, so another 10 minutes at the
Yep.
most. Could we carve out a section here to put something in there about transformers of a certain size and possibly any limitations from a substation from housing developments?
I think so. I think, as you deal with the emerging technology that's here, right? We're learning all sorts of things about noise levels, whether it's below 65, 55 decibels, whether it's, bass that's a constant hum. So we certainly could talk about, maybe John, let's sniff through this to say if there's a portion of a project that emits noise, whether it's intermittent at a certain frequency or it's a constant pitch, then yes, that either A needs to be a certain amount of feet from residences, or B needs additional sound barrier proofing materials, natural or otherwise, built around it to stop that from being projected.
The sound barrier is a good idea. That should be isolated in a sound barrier.
Yeah, they can build a building and
Right.
have sound deadening.
Similar to like they do on the expressways.
Yeah, they put a fence in
Yeah.
and stuff,
Mhm.
yeah.
So as a board, would we like John and Nathan to develop a section in here alongside this? For those areas of transformers and
Yeah.
substations?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think
Good.
so, and also. And maybe I'm missing it, but. There's always at least one non-participating landowner. What if there is not a non-participating landowner?
I think that's negated in here, isn't it? Because I think if there's not a non-participating. I was thinking there was a call out for that. So there's no setbacks if there's two agreed landowners.
Hmm.
I think that's carved out in here.
Yeah, these are non. Anything else?
So you're suggesting if there's two landowners that are both involved in the project and there's not a non-participating landowner involved, really, there should be no setbacks for them.
Or we fall back to whatever our setbacks are for everything else,
Standard,
right? Standard setbacks.
yeah. Gotta have a standard setback and the sound barriers, anything that makes a,
Noise.
a humming noise and buzzing noise and.
So for this type of project, none of our zoning ordinance setbacks would apply. It's for dwellings, accessory structures, things like that. So it would have to very specifically specify setbacks for agreeable landowner.
Mhm.
Thoughts on the setback from the center of the roadway? This draft, which, as Nathan pointed out, is just a concept of a plan here, has 500 feet listed.
A lot.
Terry, any thoughts?
No, I haven't quite put any thought into from the center of the road to a property where that would land.
And we also have 500 feet in here from a potable well source.
Good idea.
At least.
Yep.
Which that would probably coincide with if there was any language in here about from a foundation, because you're going to be kind of similar in those regards. And I don't think Gwen's here tonight, but I know that she's had a lot of questions about floodplains and what was allowed and not allowed, and I'd really like her opinion on diving into that, because I think there was some gray area with some of our previous ordinances that made it a little bit confusing to interpret. Maybe that's John, something you could reach out to the surveyor and find out what some of those gray areas might have been. 1,000 feet of a public or private airport. Kenny, can you see panels from your house as well?
I wish I could, because they put they were supposed to put panels. But yeah, I can see some panels on the next fields over and behind me.
How's the glare?
It changes because they operate with the sun, you know, so the glare hasn't been an issue really. The biggest issue is the residuals, like the buzzing and humming and
Have they had any interference like medical wise with people from the? From
Not that
the,
I know of.
okay, cause I know like the power lines and stuff, they say you can't live near. Like if you have a pacemaker or something like that. I just wondered if these interfered like that too.
Chris, have you heard anything about this?
So I had to think about, even at power lines, we've got people living by power lines all throughout the county.
yeah.
Good thought.
I think the sound barrier is a real important issue. Really, for not, even if somebody's not really close to it, that sound, you know how it is in the country, especially, it sound carries,
Oh,
man. It really carries. So something similar to like they have on these expressways and stuff for the residents, you know. I don't know how well them work, but they're pretty good size. I would imagine they would deflect some of it. And then you can say to one person, well, what's loud to you and what's not loud to this one? Everybody's got like a thermostat in the house, you know, nobody's satisfied.
Well, there is a section here that kind of carves out the noise. That's, you know, it says it can't exceed 50 decibels.
That is, if you can hear it like that,
I can hear it in my house.
that's what I mean.
Not all the time, but there's
the weather.
times when it's in summertime, or a quiet, still evening, you can hear it. Deer hunting season, you know, when the leaves are off, man, I could really hear it. And I've learned how to tune some of it out.
Setbacks. What are other counties? What are their setbacks at?
The most extreme is about 500. Everything else is between 100 to 300.
And Kenny makes a good point when the leaves are off the trees. So I don't think you can use a lot of natural things to use to, you know, the setbacks or the noise.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
dampen it.
And it takes so long for those trees to grow and fill in. I know the solar around us, the plantings just, yeah, they're not there. Yeah, they've died.
Yeah, the trees they're spaced out so far apart, they're just kind of like, you know, here, we did our part.
So that's why I don't think you use the natural part to take care of the setbacks or the noise.
You know, trees were kind of a good idea, but it would be really important to put up a sound barrier. That's
I'm hearing a lot of concerns with sound.
Is there any chance we could get some studies done at some places like Kenny's and see what sounds are coming on?
I think that's
What
a great
levels they're
idea.
at?
Well, see, the problem is, I had one of their guys come out, Kevin Parsnick, and he came over on a perfect day, because it was windy as all get out. And the wind was blowing the other direction from the south, and you could hear it, but I said, man, you came in a perfect day if you're representing the company. But normally, you know, it can fluctuate. That's the whole thing. When there's a load, you know, hot summer day, 90 degrees, and it's really pounding in a load. Now you can hear this thing at nighttime when it's, you know, no wind. And like I said earlier, you know, when the leaves are off the trees and, you know, it's for quite a few months. You know, so it, some days it's powerful, some days it's
But I know they
crap.
have a lot more equipment now, especially in the factories on determining if you need to wear hearing protection and wearing it.
It's not that.
Putting it close and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just annoying, that's all, it's not to that point, it's just okay, the best way to explain it is, you know, the vapor lights for the pole barns. The old buzz when they buzzing like
Mercury
that,
vapors.
mercury vapors, okay, amplify that 100 times.
Oh, wow. That loud.
Yeah, yeah,
I wonder if we could get like
meters.
volunteers around the county that live around some of these projects that would be
Right.
willing to put some sound meters out.
You
you
could,
can put the meters, but like I said, it just, you never know, you know, a damp day.
They could
Like,
leave them for 2 weeks. you
Yeah,
know,
We could do sound study. That's, you could
Sure.
put recorders.
couldn't hurt.
I mean, to force that.
Well, I mean, I think it would give us a real idea of what sounds being generated and heard. And how far away it's being heard.
Yeah, and if you, even a somewhat quiet sound, but you hear it all day, every
Yeah,
day,
it's-
it could wear on you after a while.
Well, does it affect your hearing or after
Right.
hearing?
Or even your mental stability to
Right.
some degree.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Board, I gotta run. I think this is a good conversation to have. Generally 55 to 65, somewhere in that boundary is the frequent line of demarcation for decibel levels that municipalities have at residential lines. That's allowed the maximum. So you could consider a maximum allowed decibel potentially. The other thing that could be explored here a bit is the continuity of constant sound even at a lower decibel level, and that's something that municipalities are still grappling with, whether or not that should be a different number. So that's just a good place to start. I gotta run. So whatever consensus you guys may come to this evening, just pass it on to John and Amber, and then we can chat about it.
Yep. Thank you for your time.
You bet, guys. Talk to you. Take care.
Thank you. So yeah, in here, maximum height of a substation or a switch yard transmission 75 feet. I guess I don't have any feelings one way or the other about that.
75 feet is not, you know, you talk about distance from a property.
No, it's
Right.
height.
Oh, height.
good for you to say substation.
Yeah, I gotta think that one in Baroque was quite a bit taller than that.
I think the one next to me because their tripod or their
Yeah, they look like that.
yeah, they're way up there. And then you got the poles that go tie into the transmission lines too.
And I think when it comes to the substations, we're probably gonna have a little bit of an uphill battle because as Chris alluded, some of that is up to,
It's in utility.
yeah, it's utility.
There may not be a way of designing it
We
to be lower.
probably the setbacks from property lines for the initial design of the project would probably be the only thing that we could potentially have a lot of say in. And if Nathan was on here, we could kind of bounce that off of him, but.
Yeah, the standard setback of 500 feet from a property line for a big substation or something like that, you know, for sure. And then a sound barrier. You know, because it carries quite a ways.
Chain link fence around the project, I think is fairly standard with all the projects to some degree. That,
Yeah, I mean,
I would change the top one, sir. I believe one of the solar projects is experimenting with livestock on the farms. So that first one kind of restricts the ability to do that going forward. I don't agrivoltaic.
So
You know-
we sheep, so you want to keep sheep inside the fence. But there's certain ways of doing that, designing fencing that keeps people out and keeps the she'd been.
Well, the barbed wire up on top of the fence wouldn't impact the.
No, that one's fine, but that's just referencing chain link fences in regards to substations and inverter yards, not
Okay.
the actual farm itself. So any substations would have to be double fenced essentially, with the chain link and barbed wire to prevent access to those stations.
Right.
For the farm itself, it's a little more relaxed to allow wildlife and livestock.
So the next big topic here is the vegetation buffer. I think this one was probably in my campaign trail, probably one of the biggest things I heard about. They had some meat on the bones, and a lot of folks were pretty disappointed in some projects that have happened in Stark County where a 12 or 18-inch evergreen was planted every 100 feet. And by the time I retire, that tree might be big enough to block something out. I think that's probably something that this board should really consider diving into. I'd like to see real trees planted with I'm just gonna put out there 60 or 72-inch height when they're planted. I know that's gonna be a little bit more expensive for development. And I'd like to personally see a double row staggered.
Staggered
Yeah.
Agree.
fence row.
Mhm.
The biggest complaint I hear even with it is the tree that was 12 inches tall that's now brown and not even gonna grow because
Right.
they were too little when they planted.
Right. And that's probably one of the biggest complaints.
And Mike, another point is the seasonal inspection. Who's going to do that?
Yeah, and what fines might be, built on if there's a section of trees that is no longer alive. It's not being cared for, would the county have the ability to go in and implement a fine per day? If that's not remedied, maybe that's something that we should look at.
That needs to be expanded on definitely, because in our area, they're neglected. It's pretty sad.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a grace period of, obviously a big company can't make things happen next day. A 30-day grace period from first warning or something. But at a certain point, I think we should implement something to encourage these companies to make sure that stuff's maintained.
And
But then again, who are we gonna report to?
the inspection is the big part. Who's going to inspect it?
We don't have an issue inspecting. The problem isn't inspecting. The problem is we have no teeth to inspect. There's no outline on what the fines are, if a tree dies and it's not planted. There's no,
Right.
you know what I mean? So if you're gonna have these barriers, you need to include the enforcement.
Yes.
If that's, otherwise I have no teeth. I can,
Well, that's what Mike just said. We need to
Right.
expand on that.
Right. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, if I may. This gets into, the current ordinance, on which all the projects are, this is what it says. Evergreens shall be placed along the perimeter of the system, including all road frontage. That's it.
Right.
So, to your point, it's like, yeah, they could be every 100 feet, they could be along, that's all it says. We all know, if you have a garden, to mandate plant this species in this area, sometimes stuff just won't grow. You can't make evergreen trees grow everywhere in this county. What our thought would be, let us come up with a plan, because we're gonna do all the soil testing. We're gonna know what's gonna grow where, and we can come up with a visual barrier, that vegetation barrier, a plan that could be proposed to the county and say, this is the species that we're suggesting here. This is the density, this is how, 2 or 3 rows or whatever. We're thinking at Christmas trees, or other, harvestable trees, fruit trees, potentially. Why would you limit it to?
Evergreen.
Evergreen on.
But we could do something that has an economic.
I think minimum 30-foot vegetation buffer is a good idea. But I think that it would be easier for the solar companies to provide a vegetative plan for approval by the board, instead of you guys trying to implement how they will do it. I think it'll be more fruitful for both sides.
That's yeah. That sounds really good if you have a company that's working with you well. But
It's
that's
when
not,
you have a company that doesn't.
yeah,
But I mean, that would be a requirement before the permit be issued is an approved vegetative screening,
And
plan.
if they don't meet that, they get the stop work order
Right.
for the fines and penalties.
It's true.
yeah.
And give you a different option. And then their enforcement would be, okay, they were approved or they were not approved. And they're gonna have all the soil information, like you said.
Right. Terry, any thoughts?
Nope, that sounds good. As long as it's enforced. The enforcement seems to be the issue.
Yeah, I think the screening is probably one of the biggest things that we've got to make sure that we get pretty airtight here. That, like I said, that's probably one of the biggest complaints I've heard.
And with that screening, just from my drive around with, is that something that in the start of the project, it's not gonna be the last thing for extension of a permit out, is the last thing placed as screening? But something, I mean, during the construction, that should almost be put up like a barrier for pre-demo. You're gonna put that barrier up before you start doing all your stuff.
It would be a bad idea. The land is obliterated during the construction,
Oh,
so,
man, it's loud.
yeah.
So every day,
Well,
seven
we've also
in the
seen
morning,
they put up
backup
that-
horns.
The black, then they do their fence. Once that fence up, they're not on that side of the fence anymore. They could start putting that barriers up.
Yeah.
Protect that construction zone.
There are, that's when you would be doing some trenching and stuff outside.
Yeah.
That, you know. But that would, we would design it and we could figure that out.
We put the onus, you guys put the onus on them to come up with a plan that meets what you want, and then you guys approve it, and it becomes part of the package for the permit.
See, you know, like, I'm like. You know, I'm
Maybe I
looking
got
at the
carried
page.
away.
I'm like, I'm looking at the page. and-
Well, I think we get further
You
into
got a
it.
cop back here?
Yeah. That's written down here. Kind of moving to page 14, unless anybody's got anything they want to jump in, which would be like 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, in case the page numbers aren't matching up. Chemical use restrictions. For me as a farmer, chemical uses, I know they've got herbicides and stuff they're gonna use out there. For me, that's hard to enforce on them because I think just about every farmer, everybody uses some kind of herbicide.
I use it too.
Conversation, maybe the board feels a little bit different, but
You don't ask farmers to, yeah. Don't put that restriction on the farmer.
well, we have restrictions of what can be used, but within reason.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
So is that, you'd like to see that whole section stricken?
I'm just having a conversation here. It's something that I've highlighted. I don't know that we need it to be taken out. Maybe we need to just word it in such a way that we create a restrictions based on what's legally allowed to
So
be
it's
used.
still there, Eddie.
Yeah,
But
How
the
strong
use
is it?
or approved for farmland use would be, I mean,
You gotta get a permit, don't you, for a higher level, for
you gotta get a license.
license,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, so.
and you gotta take classes to maintain that license and so forth.
It's the kind of thing you would include in the vegetation agrivoltaics plan is how we're going to manage the stuff that you plant.
Mhm.
And so I would say loop it into that vegetation plan.
So move herbicides into the vegetative plan?
Well, I think you probably could put something in there, but I think you could probably just
Okay.
elaborate on the chemical use a little bit, so it's not just you can't use this or you can't use that, but maybe identify it a little bit more, so there's more.
So give like specific prohibited herbicides
Yeah.
instead of a blanket.
And I think I'm kind of going back here from the last class I had here, but I think there's restrictions per geographical area. And I think you can probably find some things for like northern Indiana or even specific to the Stark County area that are legally usable. And there might even be verbiage that you can just put in there that would clarify that.
Yes, sir.
Would that be reasonable expectation?
Like Amber's comment about agricultural use, and allow chemical use similar to what the agricultural use is.
Right.
Which is highly restricted by the requirement for a license.
Yeah, I think there's restrictions based on your geographical area as to what you're allowed to use at what times of the season.
Soil types. also.
Right, yeah. So I think we can get verbiage in there that kind of alludes to that.
And most likely it must be applied by a licensed
Yeah,
applicator. I
right.
guess.
So I highlighted this one in a whole new color, so must be important. One of the things I got a lot of questions about over the last couple of years was how much the ground is destroyed during the process. And Kenny actually just kind of alluded to that in one of his comments is the construction process here is kind of brutal in some cases, not all cases, but some cases.
It's brutal. There's not no other way of putting it.
Terry, any thoughts on this?
I agree with Kenny. It's brutal. And they must, what is it? B is best practice for soil protection.
That's pretty vague. I mean,
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. It depends on what their best practice is. So I think I would say the board needs to be a little bit more specific about that.
and I know in some cases, Chris, I'm gonna lean on you to fill us in here a little bit. And I appreciate you being so polite and candid with us. I'm not gonna make any assumptions on what you guys have to do out there to get your project done. But what can be done to help mitigate some of the destruction that happens?
It goes back to vegetation, and it's a great question. You know, you think of a corn and bean field and all the inputs that go into that, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides to grow that corn. We're stopping all that, right? In general, once we establish that, we're essentially converting a corn and bean field to a pasture land with a diverse mix of grasses and forbs. That's gonna, over time, over the course of the project, it's gonna build up the soil health. It's like putting ground in CRP. That's the best analogy, right? CRP programs last for 10, 15, 20 years, and the soil health improves over time. So I would certainly say that the soil quality at the end of this project is gonna be better than it was at the beginning. And we can make those tests, right? We can verify organic content, nutrient content, all that stuff at the beginning. And through the, you know, every 5 years, do other tests and at the end. And you can require that if it doesn't meet the quality that it was at the beginning, at the end, we have to make amendments to the soil. And that's what, I mean, but I mean, there's a lot of studies on this, on how, I mean, CRP is the program to look at. That improves soil quality, and that's essentially what we're doing.
I think the more concerns is the destruction of the property during construction.
Extremely destroyed.
Sir.
Doesn't the question actually pertain to the level of the land in regards to destruction of, if it has hills and the topsoil has to be removed level? for the panels, I mean, isn't that part of the consideration?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're talking about here is how much dozing and so forth is happening.
Yeah, there's so much dozing and they also, it's so involved because by me, there's two, probably 5 acre, ponds that they dug, um, for drainage for their, you know, um, substation, but you got two, three, sometimes four track hose, big track hose working at the same time. You got 4 or 5 big giant dozers and compactors and rollers and oh, it's as major as can get.
It's a commercial project.
It's a commercial project. You might as well be building something up in by the steel mills or by the malls or building a mall or something. It's really in depth. I would say there was at least, and I'm gonna just be light here, but at least 200 uh concrete trucks that had been in and out round the clock, filling up there where they put them pylons and stuff in the ground.
That was at the substation.
Yeah, at the I'm talking about substation, but the other ones now, the panels, I mean, you can hear them for a mile away. All day pounding them things in the ground. It's very, man, it's very involved. There's a lot going on.
So maybe this is something that the board wants to consider. We can kind of dive more into on draft two, give folks time to think about that.
I think that it makes the setbacks even more important too. Especially for the non-participating property owners.
Even participating people, I know some participants.
Well, they chose.
And they were really, one of my friends, actually went in depression, cause he had no idea what was gonna really transpire. He didn't know they were gonna be digging these, I don't know what you call them, ponds. And, he had no input on it and the noise and constant, it's a major project to put these in. No matter if it's panels or a substation, it's major work. And it's gonna be about what, 3 years? I think it took about 3 years and we went through this day in, day out with the backup horns and the equipment and semis going up and down the road and just nonstop.
Okay, kind of jumping ahead here to the fire safety and emergency response. I know we really talked about that during the battery storage. And that we're not comparing apples to apples with battery storage, because I think those are a little bit more volatile than the panels potentially, but I would like to make sure that we've got all the. You had mentioned more funds from the solar companies. Well, at that point, we were talking about battery, but to help fund our local fire departments in the case of a huge disaster.
Well, I know for a fact when I spoke to Nextera about how they get through the fields and stuff like that, and honestly, the fire department would have to have something more like an all-terrain vehicle more. They leaned a little bit that way when I spoke to them, that would be preferred to be able to get to certain areas on the property. I mean, and then they would need some type of suppression system to put out something in case of a fire. So I just want to make sure that public safety is not forgotten about in this circumstance, that's all. And to have something readily available. I know that for a fact, I believe Hoosier has donated for something of like, ATVs or something of that sort,
I think maybe
and also you have too. So honestly, as long as they have what they need, and it just has to be on the project, and you participate in groups like Hoosier, and of course Chris's group, they've been very participating with trying to do this, but you get somebody outside that may not want to do that, that's why we have to make sure it's
Right.
in this. So we've got our butts covered, so that's important.
You know, on the other side of the safety aspect of this is over the last couple of years, you know, it's been on the news occasionally where a once in a lifetime storm has hit one of these solar farms and there's been, you know, massive damage. You know, is that something we want to take into consideration? Yeah, it might not happen for 20 years, but it could happen. You know, and in that case, you know, how dispersed is the debris from a project like this?
There should be dust control measures as part of the permitting process. One of the requirements should be, I don't think it's called dust. But there's definitely a response plan or a plan to mitigate dust and stuff going into the air. That's-
Talking during construction or
It normally it's for always, like the plan is continuous, because the solar farms have to deal with the dust as well, getting onto the panels, and they have to clean them. So there's generally, from what I have read and seen, there is a dust mitigation strategy that is usually involved with the planning process.
Chris, what
You
is,
guys,
During construction, for sure, I mean, you know, you look in fields, you know, out here, when you are disking or, you know, there's a lot of dust created at different times. But certainly, yeah, I mean, we care about dust with the vegetation on the panels, you're gonna control that. During construction, yeah, you would have dust mitigation plans as part of, that's kind of standard construction practice. And so you can put that in there.
so what does your team call a, like a catastrophic storm event? I'm sure you guys have a protocol.
We have insurance, yeah, I mean, they're a force act, of, you know, act of God or something like that, yeah, a tornado goes through, I mean, and we need to get the facility back online, right? So we have to get it cleaned up and get it back online.
Do you folks have a plan?
Oh, yeah.
Is there any way you could provide our board with
Yeah.
what your plan is?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
And I don't know, what do you guys call that plan? Does it have an acronym of something?
You know, disaster response plan, something like that, yeah, I mean, it's part, you know, we have to do that for our insurance, you know, brokers
Right.
and stuff like that, so they ask those kind of things.
I think it would be important for this, or to
See
develop.
how that's set up.
I'd be curious how yours is set up, but I think it's something that this board should look at into having in the ordinances to, you know, what is this company's disaster plan? Does that make any sense to you guys, or?
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, if a tornado comes through and it scatters the panels all over the county.
Right.
Are you gonna go all over the county to pick it up or only in your solar field?
That typically we'd be responsible for cleaning that all up, I mean. Tornado comes through downtown Knox, and what happens? Is each business responsible for cleaning up McDonald's sign that's
Right.
100 feet down the
I
road?
just was wondering if that is in that plan or not.
Yeah, I can look and give you guys a kind of an outline of what that looks like. But, I mean. We would. You know, there have been cases around the country where this has happened, and the cleanup has been fairly straightforward.
Well, it's fairly straightforward, but I'd like to make sure it's spelled out into what the county's expectation could be. I know, in my line of work, we've got binders, you know, 10 inches thick, I think, of all of the response plans we have to have about, you know, chemical spills and everything.
And that's,
Mike,
yeah,
is that something that should be turned in, their disaster or say evacuation plan turned in with their permitting when they apply for a permit?
I
Yeah.
think that's what's getting out with the ordinance to have that included.
Yeah. And you've got something here, 9.5, emergency response training. I think that's kind of falls in line with what Mark's kind of been
And I know
concerned
you,
about.
Hoosier has done some of that stuff, and I think so is Chris's group, Mammoth. Which is good, I mean,
Right.
that's what you want, so.
And I've heard from some of our local firefighters, and maybe this is just, drinking around the water cooler kind of thing, but, you know, the stance is, well, if there's a big event out there, I'm just not gonna go to it. You
Yeah,
know,
I don't think that.
but if it really came down to it, I think they'd go, but we need to make sure that we've got the, safety procedures in place.
Yeah.
Because we want them to feel comfortable.
And equipment.
Right.
And protection, that's all. Fantastic.
Road bonding. I know that's come up, there's been a lot of questions. I think early on some of these projects, it was presumed that there was gonna be, an obligation that some of the solar companies would pay to rebuild roads. And I think we found that in at least one case, there really was no obligation. Now that company did work with the county and made it right, but that's not saying the next company would do that. So I think that's something that, we need to make sure is fairly bulletproof. So.
Yeah,
Or-
they need to hire their own road construction crews to do it instead of putting it on the county. To do it.
Yeah, I think this,
County's got a lot of work already, I mean, and we're not, I'm guessing we're not proficient at, road work like Reese Riley or someone does it. The solar company should be in charge of fixing them roads, so the citizens won't have to go up there and complain all the time about it, Wherever you're at, when you're done, you guys clean up your mess and fix the road.
dust control, I know that was a big complaint before my time. I think the commissioners had a lot of people calling in because of some dust issues and, took some nudging, and I think that's something that needs to be defined out here again pretty well. And I'm not looking for language that, they'll do dust control measures. I personally would like to see it spelled out in detail as exactly what those measures are gonna be.
Yeah, you need more than including periodic water application, trust me. It's gonna take more than that. In 7.7B.
Yeah.
That needs to be expanded.
So,
She's right.
so again, you want more language in there that would define that.
Specifically.
Definitely, because in our experience, they would spray water and 30 minutes later, it was a dust bowl again.
Yeah.
They did put a chemical on a couple times and that helped, but it has to be, we definitely have to do better. We had 12 miles of dirt and gravel roads, and for 2 years, we lived in, that area lived in a dust bowl, and it was pretty sad. So yeah, they need to that needs to be much more specific.
Do you have any suggestions?
I would ask I don't know the chemical that they used, but when they did spray that on the roads, that helped and lasted a long time. But I don't know what it was, but when they would do water, it took months for them to finally bring the chemical that they used. But the water did no good. It dried up probably in about 20-30 minutes.
So we need to add it specifically what chemical.
Something more specific, and I don't know if maybe
I got you.
Paul could help with that. I don't know who, but
John
yeah,
said he'll look into it and.
okay, thank you.
And that kind of goes along too with the road use agreement, making sure that's spelled out properly. Decommissioning bond, also important. I think in one case, the county took the value of the equipment maybe as. And I think there was a lot of questions on that as to what really is the equipment have value at the end of the life of the project, or is that more of a liability? And I think that's something we definitely got to make sure is spelled out that we can't take the value of the equipment as a decommissioning bond. How does the board feel about that?
I would agree with that because I mean, what equipment is there other than a used solar panel and some steel that's in the ground, but it's gonna be
Concrete.
hard to get out.
It's gonna cost more to get rid of it than what any value would be, I would think. I mean, we can't foresee 30 years from now where things will be, but
Make
Can't-
the company be responsible for removing their own stuff when they're done. Shouldn't be put on anybody else. It's your stuff, take it, you know, it's. If you got panels that need to be replaced or removed or they exceeded their time life limit or whatever. Not producing, then fine, get it and you deal with it. You put it there, you deal with it.
Is that how most of them are though?
Yeah.
Or it's, yeah,
So if a company goes under,
We
this
have
is,
to provide a bond that.
the company will remove all the panels and stuff so that the, I guess the landlord or the people who acquire the farm after somebody else passes on, are not responsible. They don't.
The money there for that to happen.
right,
Okay.
that's what the decommissioning bond is
Right.
for.
All
Yeah.
right,
And it's who holds the bond? Is it the county or is it the landowner? Where
Right.
the lessee,
okay,
and so
okay,
right now it's stated that the county would be receive the funding from the bond. Right, so if you want to put that back on the landowner, you could do that.
I think it's probably best to leave it with the county, personally. Kind of going through things here, we had 11, kind of still talking about assurance. Landowner accountability, there's some language there. Terry, if you want to jump in on any of this as we're going through, feel free to.
Okay. 11.6 definition of construction. Would soil testing or geotechnical boring really, should that one be there?
In my opinion, no, it should not. That's preliminary testing. And that should be done prior to the permit even being pulled.
So we can take that out.
Yeah, I had the same thing highlighted, Terry.
Great.
Now, on this, John, you kind of alluded to this earlier. Definition of construction. Is that something that you want to dive into more and create more language to help you?
I think,
Especially the enforcement.
in my opinion, equipment delivery and laydown is not construction. Like there needs to be excavating is good, clearing, grading, excavation, the pouring of the foundations, the establishing of the racks, the running trenches for electrical wiring, like those are construction. If you deliver a pile of steel on the side of the road in the easement, that's not, it's preparation for construction, but that construction hasn't began until that excavating has began.
Can you spell that out? Is
Yeah,
that something you should?
I can definitely clean that area up, yep,
I
and
think
clean up the
would be
deck,
good.
make it very
I was
clear.
just gonna recommend
Yeah.
is
Oh, okay.
board give John the okay to kind of clean that area up.
Yeah,
little bit.
I would click it up, because we have one issue right now, don't we? Right now, John?
We do, sir.
Okay.
John, what is E? What is any disturbance requiring an ILP or drainage? So what is that?
I think that's a catch-all. I'm not really sure. It's gonna go bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, kind of cruising into 12 here. Anything from the board? Some of this is kind of more boilerplate stuff. Kind of getting into 13, I think, John, I'd like to see you work on 13 a little bit based on some of the issues you've encountered already, which is some of the enforcement stuff. I know that this wasn't drafted by you, but I'd like to get your input and dive into that and maybe have it for the second version. The first violation, second violation, $500 per day. I'm not sure $500 a day would even get anybody's attention, in a project of this scale. So I guess in my opinion, I'd like John to kind of go through most of 13 here and kind of,
With written fines,
yeah,
we're talking corporations, not people.
right.
So, honestly, when you're talking multi-million-dollar corporation.
Would the board be okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
$500, yeah.
Mhm. Kind of flipping through here towards the end, again, a lot of this is starting to turn into more boilerplate type stuff. Kind of going into the appendix B decommissioning, the compaction of the soil down to 18 inches, regrading the contour of the land pre-project. I think that's good language to have in there, but again, I don't feel like there's any meat on the bones to any of that. I think it's nice, pretty language. But at the end of the day, I don't really think that any of that means anything. So if we're gonna have the decommissioning part and restructuring this property back to how it was, I think it's gonna have to be more detailed.
The substation cannot be decommissioned. I'm telling you, that some of them holes are crossed in diameter, probably 8 feet. Across the hole, and I don't know how many, they went down about 30 feet and filled that up with, all of them up with concrete. There's no way they're gonna decommission that.
Well, and kind of going back to a previous discussion, those are technically, I mean, it's all part of the project plan, but those are not part of the project, right? Because that's up NIPSCO or whomever.
NIPSCO gives us the specs, we will build it.
Okay,
We have to, that's how we get the power stepped up and onto the grid. That's part of the project.
is that on whose property would that be then?
In some cases, the utility takes that property.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
The substation for the company, Doral, for example, is one entity. And then NIPSCO, their transformers, and they take that power and they own that land and they have full control over all of that. So NIPSCO is one, and the solar company owns all of the substation that delivers it to NIPSCO, that NIPSCO puts it into the grid.
I'm not sure that's quite.
Well, I mean, I know, I think we own, or we have leased the ground up to a certain period.
For the
At the end of
substation.
the operation, then it does
Right,
turn to.
right. Right, that's the part I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, Northern NIPSCO, their half of that substation, when all that, there's two substations. There's one big one that's gathering all the power and inverting it. And then it goes to another substation that is another entity that is owned and operated by NIPSCO that puts it into the grid. And so the actual substation that is owned by the company, Doral, for example, that's two separate things.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. If you're not gonna remove it, that anyway.
It could
Maybe
be decommissioned. I doubt you would dig up the concrete.
right.
Yeah.
So it'd still be sitting there forever. It'd have
But it
to,
would be, if the solar panels were gone, it wouldn't be making noise, it would still be the structure there, but I
Right,
imagine it's
right.
still stuff that can.
okay, that's what I was saying. There's,
I
it's
can
two
find
different,
out how the.
I don't know how, unless you took the transformers away, but the poles and everything are still gonna be
I
there.
think what I hear you saying is maybe we need a decommissioning plan for the substation.
Ah, that would not be easy. I don't know how they could decommission that. Them things, they had them giant augers just going
Well,
down
I
and
think-
down and
I
down.
think you're bringing up a good point here, and I wonder if in part of the decommission, there shouldn't be something in there about, there's a lot of language of what's gonna happen to the farm field. But what about the 1 acre or 2 acres that these substations are sitting on?
Yeah,
And maybe that's a carve out that we need to look into a little bit.
Well,
right.
Mike, that also brings us back to setbacks. How close is that to your property, Kenny?
25 feet,
How many?
25 feet.
The substation's 20.
No, the power, they put in another set of right-of-way towers to tie into the other grid of the right-of-way towers that were existing. Okay, so then you got, the only reason why this NIPSCO substation is 200 feet away is because they gotta be 75 feet away from the lines, existing power lines. So it's a mess.
I mean, you're pretty passionate about that substation issue. I think we should carve out another section of the decommissioning as to what's the plan for the substation if all this gets deconstructed.
Right?
Maybe that's, John, maybe that's something you and Nathan could kind of,
I got time, sir.
okay. Terry, would that make any sense to you?
Definitely, yeah.
We got a couple other things here that are, just appendixes to this. If you guys have anything, we can cover them. There's like 4 or 5 pages here left.
No, but I would like to add that anybody, any board member or anybody would like to come out and walk the property, my property line or something, just check it out. You're welcome anytime.
There's a buzz along the most.
Sometimes early in the morning, sometimes at night, you can definitely hear it when there's not no, when the wind is low, but oh, it'd not stop. It can't stop.
Mike, I
Okay.
had, if Kenny's done, on the application submittal, we had talked about one time about how many signatures are required for a project of this scope before it is actually valid.
Yeah, I think that did come up at one point, and wasn't there a discussion that, for something of this scale, somebody had suggested possibly even having the commissioners sign off on it.
Yeah, a commissioner, probably somebody from the planning commission plus John. It seems like our old permit forms had a space for the health department and the surveyor.
We still do.
Okay,
You have zoning, planning commission, surveyor, health department.
so a rep from each one of those departments, I think would be,
Yeah, that wouldn't change. The project is different, but the approval process is still the same.
None can be approved without also.
well, we've seen
Yeah.
permits that were only signed by one person and went through, so that's just kind of like a little.
Not since I've been here.
No, this was not before you, John, trust me. So that's why it was brought up that we need more than one person approving these things.
Yeah, and it's good for transparency,
Exactly, yes.
because if a commissioner signs it, it's gonna be in a commissioner meeting. If somebody on this board signs it, it's gonna be in a public meeting as well.
Yes. Okay.
I think that's a good thought.
And we do separate, I do not sign for the zoning portion of the permits. Amber does that only. And then I'm the final signature as the building, so I don't handle zoning, it's strictly on there.
I'm gonna add one quick thing here and kind of wrap this up. The county historically has had a TRC, Technical Review Committee. We got so thin on people last year that it was pretty much the plan commission was doing it because we didn't have enough people towards the end of the year. We could potentially bring that back. Now, what that could do is that could limit the amount of people on the plan commission to do some of these reviews. I personally, and this is up to the board, I kind of like our board working on this stuff. I think it's good transparency for the public. I think it's good that all the board can weigh in on it, and then there's nothing happening in a subcommittee, so to speak. Yeah.
I agree.
So, but it's up to the board. If you guys want to bring back a TRC, we certainly can.
I agree. It gives more input.
Yeah.
If any suggestion, I would ask that possibly you bring the highway superintendent in, the EMT or EMS, like bring the directors in from the other departments. So it's not just our eyes looking at it and we're missing EMS and things like that.
That's a good idea.
I
Maybe
think
we
Regional
should,
Jim would be very valuable. in
maybe
this.
the next time we read through this after the initial changes here, maybe we could ask them to join us in a meeting. That's a good idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea to bring a fire department.
Good idea.
Yeah, whatever
Let's send a notice
township
out.
owns the project, that township's fire chief will be part of the TRC as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Anything else, guys, on this?
I
Good
guess
work.
go ahead. I got a couple quick questions. Chris and, both of the Sioux Solar groups are here. I would like to hear a little bit about what they feel about the ordinance. I know that they've had some things that they've thrown out. I know the setbacks are a big thing, but I'd like to hear I know they were looking at doing some projects and, I always look at this as a perspective of, as a board, we have to, I think it wasn't as restrictive as this is. And what kind of impact that's gonna have to change that. And I saw some of the stuff Chris sent in, tons of funding things that they've done.
Right.
Hoosier's done a ton of funding things for this county that a lot of people in the public don't see. I really think that as a board member, I've been on the board the longest. Not bragging, but seems like the board seems to change or we burn them all out, but I'm still here. And I've been here with Hoosier and of course Durrell watching some of the projects. So I think they're trying to be good neighbors and improve things. Now, we have another discussion over NextEra, which I don't like. Personally, I think they had a real bad taste in the mouth for a lot of us. But these two have not. And I want to know, as a board, everybody needs to understand that they've done some things. And we need to at least consider some of their suggestions. That's all.
Well, and actually our next thing is public comment before.
Okay.
So I think that's.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I just want to make sure.
So at every meeting, we have a section here for public comment. So, and Mark brought up, I think it'd be good to hear from a couple guys.
Want to go first?
Yeah, I'd like to go first. I want to address the restrictions you have on the 3% of the land and the 100 acres as the size of the project. Those are very restrictive restrictions, and a project like what we are doing is not going to happen with those restrictions in place, I don't think.
Well, and before you get too far into this, I do want to make sure everybody understands this isn't even a draft that we have put together. This is just a concept of a plan. We're not even to a draft, so to speak. This is the first time this is the first time the board's even worked on this at all. So I appreciate your thoughts there, but just keep in mind, this was the first discussion this board's even had on this.
I've got some comments and I'd like to make those,
Yeah,
whether it's a draft or permission or what.
sure.
I'd like to make some comments. And I'm not making these comments for Hoosier Solar. I didn't come here for Hoosier Solar.
I come to local meetings to keep them informed on what's going on around here. But I don't even, I'm not involved in the company. Mary works with them. I work, I do some work for them, come to these meetings. I didn't even come here tonight to represent that. Mary came to take notes. But I came because I've lived in this county. I was a county commissioner once. I was the director of the planning, economic development, foundation. And I've lived here since I was 5 years old. I've lived here for 70 years. So this is my home and I have an interest in it. And I would like to see restrictions put on that's going to keep any future projects from coming to the county. Because the economic development payments that come from these solar projects can be very beneficial to our community. And I wrote down kind of a script here, so if I'm looking at that, I just want to make sure we only were given 3 minutes last time, so I had this within 3 minutes. But I was part of in fact, I led the Constellation of Start group working on towards a stellar project. State of Indiana sends money through what they call the Oprah agency, and they have every year they used to offer opportunities to get that state money. Actually, their money comes from the federal government, comes through Oprah for our small communities. And we put in an application to get the grant. We ended up not getting it, but we were interested in things like arts and recreation, and parks were kind of our main focus. We looked at housing and we looked at health and some other issues, but we discussed, our group did at length, about local match for these state grants. You have to have a 40% match, a 50%, 20%, 10%. They're all different, but you have to have some local money to get the state grant. And we discussed that at length, where do we get these? Well, something like the revenue from an economic development payment from a solar project is something that wasn't available when we did that, but it came on right after that. And that perked us up. Hey, there's one other alternative for a way to have some local match money to get these state grants. I'm also a member of the Prairie Trails Club, and we're in the process of extending the Erie Trail that goes through the southern part of Stark County. It ends at the east edge of North Judson. We've got a 1 mile project going from there through North Judson and headed up towards English Lake. They started on that construction last fall and they'll finish it up this spring. Well, we would have loved to taken that thing all the way up to English Lake, but we could only go as far as what we felt our local match could, what we get money for local match. So we did 1 mile. And that's a thing that the solar revenue can be used for. There are other things that would be beneficial to the community that they could be used for. Things like supplementing the county budget, the Senate Bill 1 of last year. I know that's been a concern about the county budget of the hospital. I mean, I know one of the council members in particular would like to see any support that was needed for the hospital to keep it viable. Housing, infrastructure like roads, bridges, water, broadband, and airport, and then any other economic development projects. Vocational training for adults and for students in the schools, as well as any other assistance for the schools. And I'm sure there's more things that it could be used for. But this ordinance should certainly be designed to protect the community, and I'm fully behind that. But I think it would be wise to not structure it to restrict projects that can provide revenue for things that the county would not be able to do otherwise without these funds. So don't lose an opportunity to do good things for the community. That's all I have to say. Just bear that in mind as you're growing up. And I never got into the nuts and bolts of the rest of it. And I'm not sure if our people aren't even looking. As last I knew, weren't even looking at any further projects here. I don't know if they have an interest in it. But I can tell you, Chris sure does. And to Mark's point about talking to the companies, I don't think our people would come down, and Mary and I are not qualified to sit and say what's good in the ordinance and what's not. I don't know if you get anybody from our company to come over, but Chris, I'm sure you could get Cohen, what's his first name? Nick,
Oh,
the
yeah.
president of the company.
Oh,
He
yeah.
came down for meetings that I, when I was the director of the Economic Development Foundation, he came down for meetings to meet county officials and get acquainted and talk to the public. I think Nick would come, and he's the guy that could tell you what in this ordinance would be restricted for them and what, they can live with. I think that would be a wise thing for you to have Nick come, or maybe get on a Zoom with some of you and talk about those things.
Well, I got a cell phone number.
But you gotta.
I have a cell phone number.
Yeah, he's very.
Chris, like, yeah.
So if I could pick up on.
Take over.
Yeah, no,
And they have done 4-H related. They did the barn at the hog barn. So I mean, go ahead, Chris.
well, I mean, I think it was not the last meeting before, but Mr. Eagle had asked that question. It was a very good one. It's like, what benefit is coming to the county from all this? Because we've heard a lot of the challenges during the construction period, right? And so that's why we put that document together to try to quantify the economic benefit, and that was sent out today, and I've got hard copies if you haven't had a chance to see it.
That's all.
But it is significant. And we are interested in building an additional project on the east side of the current project. It'd be about half the size of what that current project is. And as you know, looking at that 40-page document, you couldn't do that. Maybe some of the changes that we talked about that might become possible, but the benefit is real. And I think some of the mitigation issues that we talked about today about around the substation,
Sound.
I think are possible. I mean, I think that could be something that could be done. So I think that was a positive discussion. What we would like to encourage, was a second document I sent around today, is something we're very passionate about, is this agrivoltaics approach, because we truly believe we are doing two things on this ground. We are making electricity, but we're also converting it to pasture land and crop or in some cases continuing to farm it as it was before. And we did, and there are ways of incentivizing that with the development of this grazing program. We're looking at Stark County potentially being a center for the state for lamb production. And this is generating other jobs and local food. And that's a big thing. And so this concept of an agrivoltaics overlay district, an overlay district is something that is a common planning tool. It's something we would ask you guys to consider. And I could sit down with John and kind of go over the outline that we have for doing that. It's been reviewed by American Farmland Trust, other attorneys. It might be a way of adding to this such that it would incentivize the type of solar project I think the county wants to see that incorporates agriculture into the project. And that could be the stuff we do outside the fence, what we're growing, what we're using to screen, as well as what's going on inside the fence. And so that's what the request would be, is maybe think about the benefits that are coming from this. Benefits would come from an additional project, not as big as one we built, but that would add on to the economic benefits, and then think about this agrivoltaics operation.
Thank you. Don?
We got a couple things. I'm glad, Chris and Larry and Mary's all here, and hopefully the board will listen to them on some suggestions. The thing I don't like is, and nothing against John, I think John's been doing great on researching it, but him having full control, I don't think it's good. I mean, if the board don't have no say so, why are they here? In my opinion, that's just me alone. And the roads Teresa's talking about, when you put that in there, you might, or she's talking about, you told about the roads, they had 10 days before they even had to respond. We need something better than that in the road.
Little tighter restrictions. I know that you guys really had to deal with the issues with that.
And it was the way it was road,
Right.
And the dust.
You
Noise.
mentioned, if I may, You mentioned, last time we were discussing this. And I didn't know the amount of monies that Doral gives to the county, and you said they give $1 million.
Did you?
Now, just hang on.
Yeah.
A minute. All right, hang on a second. Let me put this in perspective. In 1969, $350,000, if a person had that, in today's money is 4.25 million.
Yeah.
$1 million that they give up this county or anybody is nothing in today's money. Now, wait a minute, it's nothing. You got the average steel worker. I know steel workers that are making 150,000 a year working in the steel mills. The average workers, including one of my grandsons who drives a truck for waste management thing, is he's making $100,000 a year. $1 million is nothing. You know, they need money for they gotta have so much money to put in for for the state to assist them in finances and stuff like that, having things done, which is good for the county, no doubt. But the big pitch here is how good it is for the county. It's not good for the county now, and I mean this in a friendly business manner, not as anti this or nothing. I'm just gonna talk with common sense. Our electric bills, including mine, has skyrocketed. We were told in the county, now I'm gonna speak for the county people, the average person. We were told that, oh yeah, this bag of goods we got sold originally, your bill is gonna go down, this thing can give electricity to $200,000 houses. That's baloney. It goes into the grid. The grid gets that power. So the bottom line here is it's a business, and the businesses are made to make money. That's it. That's the bottom line. It's about business for the company. The company wants to make money, the landlords get their share, but the citizens of Stark County really get nothing at all but a bone. You throw us a bone for $1 million, and as time marches on, that is not, the way our economy shot up, and I'm still not adjusted to the price changes in restaurants. $50 for you go. My wife and I go to Christo's, and by the time taxes and the tip and everything is done, you're talking $50 today. So money isn't quite like it used to be when somebody tags a six-figure number of $1 million. This man can't, if him and all of these other facets that we have that need money to show up front to get money, that doesn't go very far. Who are we fooling? We're fooling ourselves. And I'm just saying this with real common sense and conviction for our citizens of Stark County who really get nothing for all this property that we're giving up to a company. Do I make sense?
No, I disagree. I would respectfully, I appreciate your perspective.
Okay, well,
But I mean, what is the county budget? About $15 million?
I think it's a little more than
Is it,
that.
15, 16?
okay.
Our economic impact last year was $5 million. Okay, not on what we gave, what we, the leases to landowners,
No, that's not an economic, that's not to do with the average citizen. You're talking a business. I'm here. I was blessed to be here because of our commissioners gave me the opportunity to represent Stark County citizens. And I am saying our citizen people, our average people have got nothing but higher electric bills and eyesore out there in the fields. And the only two people that benefit from this, really benefit, is the company and the landlords. But I'm just trying to be, I'm trying to use some basic common sense and looking down of, there's really no, in the big picture, there's no benefit for the citizens of Stark County. This is a benefit for the company. And if I was in your shoes, I'd be saying the same thing you are, because I'd be defending the company. That'd be my job.
Chris, you mind if I respond? I don't work for a solar company. I work for a nonprofit. We help landowners, achieve their dreams of being able to use their land for what they choose. I get what you're saying, $1 million in the like huge picture, sure, not a lot. But I could go. I know a lot of these companies all around the state, and I've been all around the state to meetings just like this. I'll just go and tell them, hey, people don't care if you're giving them money. They don't want the Stark County, they don't want the $1 million anymore. Is that what you're, because it sounds like you're
I'm
speaking.
not saying that the county can't not use that money.
Well,
That'd be foolish to say that.
But you did.
No,
You
what
said
I'm saying is, it is minimal. It is a minimal amount of money.
If your budget
Our county is
15 to
set
20
for what our
dollars a
county
year.
is sacrificing as far as our
What is the county sacrificing? It's a landowner.
property, land,
The landowner is left.
everything. You're sacrificing everything. It's bottom line is, and I really want to do this in a friendly way. I mean, I'm not pro, I'm not totally, I like solar. I'm a Native American. I'm all for, natural, things like that. But I'm just trying to say, hey, look, what we're all doing right here is basically, we're discussing a big business, an industry. Stark County is not an industry.
I think it's one thing that we did look is this idea of, we're impacting property values. We looked at, over a 1 year period of housing sales in the Mammoth area. And what the asking price was and what the selling price was. And people that think, oh, this impacted the property value. The data doesn't show that. Here in Stark County, it doesn't show because, now I think you're adjacent to this substation, you're might be an exception. But property that's near the regular solar panels, when somebody, might not like living next to it, but if they wanted to sell their house, they could sell their house for whatever they wanted to list it for. And that's what the actual real estate transactions show, is that there's no diminution in property value.
Okay. I understand that. Let's go right back to square one.
Let me, I hate to interrupt you there, Kenny. This might be a better conversation between you and Chris.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, we're gonna keep going.
Appreciate everything you're saying.
That's what he says, and I'm just trying to put this in some perspective.
Yeah.
Chris, would you be willing to spend a little time with him? Okay.
And I appreciate your passion on this, Kenny. I think.
And you live right next to it. We get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Anything else from the public?
Back when you were talking about fencing, one thing that might be considered, like they did in the Wheatfield area, they put like Venetian blinds open in the.
Like a privacy type of thing?
Yeah,
Okay,
that was in
yeah.
areas that were, it was close to a house, someone's house. And the other thing is, I haven't read these ordinances, I haven't been able to get a copy yet, but a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about the battery ordinance, drafting battery ordinance. For fire protection, I think there was some kind of requirement for a well to be put in.
Yes.
And I imagine it's probably in the solar ordinance. I didn't hear it tonight, but
There is a provision
Yeah,
in there for
there is.
it.
my question is, in a sense, we're forcing the well to be put in for fire protection. My question is there anything in there that would help, that could be used to help prevent an accidental well contamination? I mean, is that well only used for the fire department and there's a cap and a padlock and only the fire department uses it? Or is it a well that any contractor that's hired by a solar company can use that for washing off the solar panels or use that water in conjunction with the herbicides, spray the field? But my bottom line question is, how do we protect our water, which that well is going into?
I don't know how much water they would use on the solar anyway. My opinion, am I fair to say, Chris, they're gonna use a phone?
Well, regardless how much they use, you have to recognize that it wouldn't take much of whatever accidental backwash contaminate water that might be coming to my house.
Say that about a farmer, any farmer, they blow water all over the place. They have their own wells on property.
You don't have an ordinance that's tell them what they can do with their well. I mean, you didn't force that well on that farmer, but here in this ordinance, we're telling them they gotta put a well in. So I think there ought to be some kind of regulation or at least some guidance by maybe some other state standard to protect the potential contamination of that well.
It's a valid concern we can talk about when we go through when John gets an actual, a little bit more hardened draft going here.
I just don't.
I think he's talking just because there's a well requirement on it that.
Yeah.
They're gonna stop contamination, yeah. So, yeah, we could add that,
Anything else from the public?
this gentleman here.
Yeah, just one quick thing, because it's top of mind because of a meeting I attended out in Huntington County yesterday about a solar project out there. Section 5.5 through 5.7, somewhere around there. I think it was about the ILP, the 1 year to start construction with the ability to extend that another 12 months. So that just a quick the issue out in Huntington County, they had 2 years to start construction plus 1 year to extend that if needed. I know when it comes to some of these projects, some of the equipment is not necessarily readily available to the developer.
He can't live.
No, he can't.
Obviously,
I'll wrap up.
obviously we have the 12-month additional 12 months. But is there a way does that first year start the day that permit is given?
The start date would be the permit issuance date.
Okay.
Yes.
So there isn't like a way to start it 6 months later, because I know some of these companies, they're dealing with timelines that are set by the grid operator or the company that's going to eventually purchase that power.
So if you wanted to wait 6 months, why didn't you just pull the permit 6 months later?
Yeah,
It's an improvement location permit. You're ready to improve the location, come get your permit.
for sure.
Until then, it's not a permit where you're holding the land while you're doing preliminary things. it's probably a bad time to discuss subjects, so I hear what you're saying, but.
I know it's funny and it's like, seems like a non-issue, but they're about to deal with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit in Huntington County. I'm trying to make sure that it's something that y'all don't have to do.
Well, we're looking.
Let me check the PZA's Facebook page.
Thanks for coming and
Yeah.
commenting.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, it's coming.
I just real quick would like to say thank you for the work you all have put into this. And just for, being open-minded and looking at what has worked on other projects and what, where there's room for improvement. And, as is the case with Chris and Doral, we at Hoosier would like to, if there's any expertise we can offer, any input, please let us know. Because, we're here. I'm like Larry, I grew up here, I live here, this is my home. And just want to see things done well and done right and protect everyone's input. So thank you all.
Thank you. Anything from the public? Board? Need a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion from Mark, we have a second?
Second.
A second from Crystal, all those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, Kenny, you could have left, but we have.
You don't even know the same.
No, I wasn't gonna leave. I was gonna use the.
Well, right, but